Welcome to the Through These Gates podcast, the most rational Nebraska football show on the whole motherfucking internet. I'm your host, as always, Caleb Salvatore. Thank you so much. Before we get started, make sure you guys press the like button, subscribe, comment, turn the notifications on, and share around if you'd be inclined to. Follow my socials at Caleb Isn't Funny on Twitter and Instagram, Caleb Salvatore Comedy on TikTok. They're about to kick me off, but it's all good. My personal YouTube, Caleb Salvatore. Follow the show. That's based on outlawstreamers.com. It's also available on Rumble, Spotify, Spreaker, and iHeartRadio. We did it! We made it to the bye week. Give yourselves a round of applause, but not that long because it's not that you didn't really do shit. Just some housekeeping stuff to go over this week. I don't have a preview, obviously. That's not till next Friday. Everything's kind of up in the air right now, so it's I guess we can just reflect on the first 7 games of the year, kind of a midseason, a little bit past midseason, but midseason report card nonetheless. It feels like midseason. So yeah, I got just a couple things on the list to go over. First off, I think we did we're gonna do it. Well, I'll do a rundown quick. I said a couple weeks ago we'd go over which coaches are going to be retained, or which coaches I think will be retained, which ones will be let go. So we'll go over that real quick. That won't take long. Then we're going to go over newcomer grades. So coaching newcomers, transfer portal arrivals, who was a hit, who was a miss. After that, update on the coaching search, my thoughts on that. Then a record prediction for the remaining 5 games, and just a little bit more than that. Or that should be about it, actually. Before we get into that, though, Malachi Coleman will announce tomorrow, and he canceled all of his visits with everybody except Nebraska. We're the only school he's visited. So that's got to be a good sign. Like, that's got to be a positive development for us. I can't imagine him going anywhere else. So, and it's also got to be a good sign for Mickey Joseph. It means he's going to be around to some degree on this staff, which we'll get into later. So, first up, coaching coaches we're going to keep that I think. Pretty quick, I think Mickey Joseph is probably the only one whose job is pretty much safe. Bill Bush, I could see him regressing back to his special teams role if somebody came in and didn't have like a slam dunk hire. Everybody else, I don't see any chance, man. I don't. I mean, because you have to think about it from the perspective of if they do bring a new coach in, right? If you're a new coach, and you're coming in, you're going to take this team over, you're going to try and flip it around and right the ship. How many guys are you really going to keep from a staff that just won 5 games the year before? Come on. They're not going to. I think some guys have some redeeming qualities. I don't think Barrett Root is the worst coach. I think Sean Beckton's done a solid job with tight ends. It's just been unfortunate they don't utilize them like they should. They've never had an offensive coordinator who really tried all that hard to get them involved in the offense. I think Applewhite would, if I had to pick a third, it'd probably be him. But again, hasn't been anything spectacular. So I just don't see him staying. I think Anthony Grant would have been a phenomenal running back no matter who the coach was. Don't think Applewhite's done a particularly bad job. But I just don't see. I feel like a coach coming in would prefer to bring his own guy in unless there's something that jumps off the page. Now remember, when Callahan came in, Pelini was that guy that everyone was like, hey, he wants to be here. He's one of the best defensive coordinators in the country, and Callahan fired him. And honestly, I think if Callahan would have kept Pelini, there's a good chance he's still our coach. Pelini would have taken a head coaching job elsewhere, but that at least would have given them the building blocks to have a decent defense. You know what I mean? So after that, Whipple, there's a lot of concerns with his health. He may retire after this year. Now, granted, it would be nice. You would want to have some continuity for Casey Thompson, because it is tough when you got a quarterback who's played under 3 different offensive coordinators in 3 years. But I don't think it would be the end-all, be-all. I've been very vocal. I haven't been impressed with Mark Whipple this year, so I wouldn't be surprised at all to see the new coach come and kind of show him the door. I also wouldn't be surprised to see him show himself the door. But, as far as Mickey Joseph, it may be required that he's kept, and I really don't think that's a hard sell to any potential head coach. I mean, he's probably top 3 receivers coaches in the country. And he's a phenomenal recruiter. The players love him. I don't think it would be a tough sell to any head coach that, hey, if you're going to keep anyone, keep this guy. And then Bill Busch, I could see sticking around. But yeah, pretty quick. Those are really the only 2 that I think have a snowball's chance in hell of staying. As far as grades for the new hires in coaches, I mean, let's go down the list. So running backs, Brian Applewhite, I'll give him a B+. Like I said, I think he's done a good job. I don't see anything particularly glaring that was off about Applewhite this year. I think he's done a really solid job. He found, I mean, up till Allen got hurt, you had 2 starting caliber running backs, guys that were making noise and putting up numbers despite having probably the worst offensive line in the country over the last 5 years in front of them. They were putting up numbers and scoring touchdowns despite that. And I think that nothing glaringly bad about him this year. They haven't really had fumble fingers on the running back. Everything's been solid. After that, Mark Whipple. This is a tough one. I'm going to say C-. I think Mark Whipple at times has called plays scared, and he's been passive. And when he does get aggressive, it's just one of those situations where it just doesn't seem to make sense. I think, and he's so hit or miss. I mean, there's some weeks, the first half of the Northwestern game, right? The second half of the North Dakota game, the whole Georgia Southern game, the whole Purdue game. Mark Whipple looks like the Mark Whipple we saw at Pittsburgh. Elite performances, right? You got a quarterback and a receiver, Thompson and Palmer, that are in sync and look like potential All-Americans, except for that Purdue game, but whatever. But yeah, and then there's other weeks like the Rutgers game, or, I mean, like the Oklahoma game, where he just looks like he's calling plays with his tail between his legs. It's 50-50 with him. I'm going to say D+ for Whipple. Mickey Joseph, I'll give it A. I'm not going to give anyone an A+ on this staff because I don't think anyone deserves it on a team that could very well end up 3-9. I don't think anyone gets an A+. But I'm going to give Mickey an A. Obviously, the head coaching aside, I think he can get guys here, and he's developed talent. Trey Palmer is the best receiver, honestly, I think I've ever seen at Nebraska. I don't think I've ever seen a better receiver than Trey Palmer. Like Toure was great last year. J.D. Spielman looked good. Stanley Morgan was good. I mean, we've had guys, but we've never had a guy. You know what I mean? Jordan Westerkamp was a solid receiver, but we've never had that as far back as I can remember. Nate Swift was another one. Niles Paul was okay, but we've never had a guy where you look at him and you're like, that guy could be a first-round pick. That guy could be a first-round pick. We've never had a guy like that. And Trey Palmer could easily be a day 1, day 2 pick in the NFL. Easily. So I think that Mickey Joseph, he's done as good as he could. Raiola, A+, no. F-. Terrible. I get they lost Juergens. He was their best player. He was the captain of the offensive line. But as a coach, it is your responsibility to fix the schemes and develop the talent. There's no reason that every single player, all these other guys were there last year, and they all look significantly worse. They've all taken a step back under Raiola's leadership. The offensive line was terrible last year. I thought there was no... It's funny. Every year under Frost, I said there's no way this offensive line could get any worse, and every year they find a way to amaze me. So I think Raiola's been a train wreck. He's gone. Whoever the coach, whether it's Mickey, whether it's Lance Leipold, anybody, I think Raiola's gone. I don't see any way he stays. Bush, I give a B+. I mean, they had one bad blocked punt. That's going to happen, though. That's the thing is you get these guys in, they're supposed to be surgeons or whatever, right? They're these great coaches, and they're going to fix all the problems, and then one error, and it's exaggerated, right? I think Bill Busch has been fine. They had a blocked punt. They had a really bad shanked field goal early on in the season. But other than that, I think Bleakroad's been fine. Bushini's been good. The kickoff unit hasn't given up any glaring, stupid plays. Neither has the punt team. So I think I think Bush has been. You can tell that we have a guy who's coaching special teams full time, or up until the last 2 weeks, obviously. But you could tell we had a guy coaching special teams full time, and it's still even without him running the special teams, it still looks better. Under the interim guy. So yeah, I think he's been a solid hire. Transfer portal guys. Let's do it here. We'll just go in alphabetical order. Hunter Anthony. Listen, if they're an offensive lineman, they're going to get an F. He has not shown any indication of being an improvement above what we have. If anything, he's been a step in the wrong direction. So I don't know. There's no way I can grade him at anything other than an F. Period. He just has not looked good in the limited reps he's seen. Timmy Bleakroad. B+. B+. He had that bad missed field goal, but we haven't missed a PAT yet. He had the bad 39-yard miss, but other than that, I mean, he's had one really long one to lose the Georgia Southern game. Was that? They might have sent Frankie in there, but he's got one other miss above 50. I know that. But other than that, he's been solid. He's been solid. Make your PATs. That's a step in the right direction. There's 2 or 3 games that if the kicker just makes chip shot kicks and PATs, last season's completely different. It's a completely different story we're talking about. And he's done that. Omar Brown, I really can't grade him. I haven't seen anything from him. Bushini, A. The punting game's no longer a problem. We don't have to worry about 4-yard kicks. A. He got one blocked, I get it, and that seemed to be more of a scheme thing than being on the punter, but A. No problem with Bushini. He's looked good. Devin Drew and Stephon Wynn, we'll grade them together. I'm going to say D. I'm just not impressed. They're not able to stop the run. They get no push up front. They haven't been able to consistently crack the lineup. In a weak front seven. I'm just not impressed. Like you saw with Sue in Crick. If you have a great defensive front, great defensive lineman, especially in the inside, that can compensate for poor play elsewhere. And that defense was great either way. But a guy having a dominant defensive lineman like that, like an Ndamukong Suh type guy, it can make up for for shortcomings you have elsewhere in your defense. And they're not able to do that. We have a lot of shortcomings on this defense, and these guys, I think they waited too long. They went after everybody but defensive linemen and offensive linemen in the transfer portal, and we just didn't get it. They just didn't pan out. Garcia Castaneda, how do I grade that? D. Looked phenomenal in that first drive against Northwestern, and then pretty much did nothing. Then his dad went LeVar Ball on Twitter. D. He's not even on the team anymore. Tommy Hill, that's a tough one to grade because they changed his position. I'm going to say like C. I wasn't really impressed with him when I saw him on defense. And now they got him returning kicks. O'Shawn Mathis, this is a tough one because you got a grade on a curve. He's been solid. He gets pressure. The numbers aren't really there. I mean, when you pay what we allegedly paid for a transfer portal player, you expect big numbers. And right now we're not seeing that from him. He gets, like I said, consistent, solid pressure, but I'm not seeing the game-changing player that we were promised when he came here. So I'm going to try not to be too biased when I grade him. I'll give him a B because, like I said, he gets consistent pressure. He's been a solid role player, but with what we were sold on him, I expected a lot more than just being a role player. Everyone seemed to think he would be one and done, but I got a feeling he's going to be back next year. Trey Palmer, A+, man. A+. A+. Like I said, it's hard to give, at least for coaches, an A+. on a team that could very well go 3-9. But players is a different story, and Trey Palmer has exceeded everyone's expectations, myself included. I was kind of cautiously optimistic about him, just, given the limited roles we had seen from him. But no, I mean, he best receiver I've seen at Nebraska. Period. Best I've ever seen here. I mean, we're talking about what Johnny Rodgers was a wing back, Irving Fryer days. Like, we're talking those days. You got to go back to find someone better than him. Chubba Purdy, incomplete. He hasn't played much. Very limited. Casey Thompson's the next one, and this is the one everyone cares about. I'm gonna give Casey a B-. I think there are a lot of things that he does well. I think there are certain things he does not do well at all. And then I think there are certain things he could do better if he had better protection. So it's hard to grade a guy like Casey Thompson when he doesn't have protection and time to throw the ball. For instance, one of the things he could do better would be to run. He doesn't have to be an Adrian Martinez every time he touches the ball, but there have been certain times where had he run the ball, it would have kept the drive alive. But instead he threw a bad pass and it was incomplete or whatever. So I think Casey Thompson, B-. I would love to see him with a better offensive line. I would love to see him with an offensive line that could protect him. I don't know. Marcus Washington. This is I'm going to say D+. I said the drop passes are a problem. He's kind of emerged as the de facto number 2 receiver because we really haven't had anybody. But I think, honestly, I'm at a point where I'd rather see Oliver Martin. I'm not impressed with him. I wasn't too high on him when we got him because I was kind of like, he had less of a track record to go off of than Trey Palmer, so it was kind of like I had nothing to go with, but I think that's I'd call it a miss so far. Kane Williams, I can't grade on that because he hasn't played. Kevin Williams Jr., F, man. Blocking's been terrible. Anyone on this offensive line ain't getting an A, ain't getting a B, ain't even getting a C. It's been bad, man. It's been bad. Bad's an understatement. So yeah, that's really all I got to say on that. And then lastly, JUCO transfer running back Anthony Grant. A. Guy looks good. No way around it. He's going to play on Sundays. This is the best back we've had in I don't know how long. Legit number 1 back. He kind of the last time we even had a guy that was number 1 was probably Divine Ozigbo. And I think Grant's an improvement on Ozigbo. So that's the transfer portal grades. Let me know what you think. Do you disagree? Do you agree? What did I get right? What did I get wrong? Do you think that do you think Mathis could maybe come into his own if he stayed for his senior year? Same with guys like Stephon Wynn. Do you think Kane Williams is going to be a contributor? It'll be interesting to see when he gets healthy. Do you think Trey Palmer stays for another year? Let me know in the comments. Next up, coaching hunt. A lot has changed since we made that video on the last bye week. A lot has changed. It's just so we made a list. If you didn't go watch the last video, it was a couple weeks ago. It was on the bye week. It was the last bye week. I made a video about, and I basically split it up into several different categories. Guys that I didn't think would ever happen. Guys that I considered would be grade A hires. And then guys I didn't want were essentially it. Was the gist of them. There were more groups than that, but that was really the gist of it. A lot has changed. So I'm going to go over who I don't think will be the head coach. I don't see any way. So guys that I think are out. I think Luke Fickell's not coming here. I would have been cool with it. I don't see him coming here. Urban Meyer. I think the ship has sailed. I don't think he's coming here. It was fun to think about. I just don't see it happening. I think it's done. I think it's you would have heard more. There would have been more rumors spinning. I mean, somebody would have said something. I just don't think that he's coming here. Matt Campbell. I don't think Matt Campbell's coming. I don't. So let me tell you where Matt Campbell is. If they would have hired Matt Campbell a couple weeks ago when I made the last coaching search video, I wouldn't have been disappointed, but I wouldn't have been excited. Do you see what I'm saying? Like I would have been in wait and see mode, which is where I'm at with Aranda, right? If they hire Aranda, I'll be like, okay, let's wait and see. I don't think he's coming here. I think right now, over the past couple weeks with what we've seen from Campbell, it would be Mike Riley level deflating for this fan base if they hired him. That would be the level of anger surrounding that hire. Remember how mad everyone was when they hired Riley? We were like, we might as well just kept Pelini. That would have been the same thing. Like, I think there would be more excitement in this fan base if they just kept Mickey than if they were to bring in Matt Campbell. I just don't think it's a good hire. Another one. So those are the guys. I don't see them coming. I don't see them coming here. I think Chadwell's out. Listen, if you're going to be the small group of five conference coach that comes in and takes over a job like Nebraska, you got to be impressive. You got to be, I mean, we got to see something from you, right? Chadwell, it's been very underwhelming. I think Troy Calhoun's out for the same reason. I think Jeff Lebby's out at Oklahoma for a similar reason. Oklahoma's offense has not been spectacular. Not the way they started the season off, not to that degree. Jim Leonard's out because I think he's going to get the Wisconsin job. I think they fired their coach to keep Jim Leonard in Wisconsin. They did not want him coming to Nebraska. I think you really have got it down to a couple guys here. One of them being Mickey Joseph. I think Mickey's a candidate. I think if Mickey can win a couple more games, he's a strong player. I think if Mickey Joseph gets to 5 wins on the season, it's tough for Alberts to fire him. Or not fire him, but not retain him as the head coach. He's right there. I don't think he's a shoo-in, but he's got a decision to make. It's like that, right? He gets 6, 7 wins, stay tuned. I think the guys that it's coming down to, I think you got Mickey Joseph. I think Matt Rule, who I'm not crazy about. Matt Rule's a possibility. I think Dave Aranda's a possibility. Also not crazy about. Both of those guys I wouldn't be Matt Campbell level upset if we hired, though. Does that make sense? Like, if we hired Campbell, I would not be happy. I would say this is a mistake, and I would call it from the get-go. Of course, I'd want him to succeed. I just wouldn't see it happening. Matt Rule, Dave Aranda, you hire those guys, I'm not going to get excited. We're in hurry up and wait mode. Let's just wait and see. What's it look like? So I think it's those three. And then I think you've also got Lance Leipold, I think is still a candidate, still a strong candidate with what he's doing in Kansas. I mean, yeah, he lost a game, so we can't hire him. That's the general consensus on Twitter. If one of these coaches loses, they're out of the sweepstakes. You got to go undefeated like Frost did. No, that's not how it works. He lost the game barely to a good TCU team without his starting quarterback. So, and then he lost to Oklahoma. He almost came back. So I think you got those guys. I think another option, I think Bill O'Brien is still on the table, very much on the table. I think Bronco Mendenhall's on the table. I think PJ Fleck is on the table based on some reports that came out this afternoon. We'll see if there's any validity to him. And then I think Lane Kiffin's on the table. And I didn't want Lane Kiffin, but the more I look into it, he was on my don't want list, but I'm he's kind of growing on me. He is a troll. We'll give him that. He does like to rile the internet up, but he has had some comments he made derogatory comments about Ole Miss not being able to fill the stadium when they got like the number 10 team in the country and they're undefeated. He's from here. He's from Lincoln. He's had some tweets. Nebraska fans, there was the whole thing about the jet coming from Oxford to Lincoln. I mean, there's a possibility that Lane Kiffin could be the guy. Like, there's a possibility Lane Kiffin could be the guy. Don't overlook it. I mean, he's got long college experience. I think those are pretty much the guys that I think it could be. It could be any of those guys. If you put a gun to my head right now, say pick who you think it's going to be or I'm going to blow your head off, I would probably say Dave Aranda. That's probably who the smart money's on right now. Could be anybody. Not saying that's who I want. Not saying that's who I think it should be. I'm saying if you did a gun to my head and we did we did like an odds sweepstakes, that I would probably bet Dave Aranda. That's probably who I would bet on right now. Now, he did sign an extension not too long ago, and it's a private school, so the information, the details of the contract, it's like 2029, I think they said. So the details of the contract are a little, we don't know because they don't have to release it. It's not a public school like Nebraska is when they had to release the stuff with Frost. So it remains to be seen, but I just don't see, he just seems like the one that all the buzz is around. It kind of makes the most sense. I'm not a huge fan of the hire, but it's at least one where I would be willing to sit there and say, okay, I could be proven wrong here. Where I don't think I'll be proven wrong with like a Matt Campbell. I don't think I'll be proven wrong with a Jamie Chadwell. I don't think I'd be proven. Yeah, I'm good. I don't think I'd be proven wrong with like Dan Mullen or any of those guys. So, yeah, but I do think Mickey Joseph will be on the staff to some degree, especially if Malachi Coleman commits. I think that kind of solidifies it. He will be on the staff to some degree next year, whether it be as a head coach or the receivers coach, assistant head coach, whatever. Mickey Joseph will be around next year. That's my smart money prediction. While we're doing predictions, let's do a record prediction for the rest of the season here. This is a tough one. There's a lot of ways this could go, right? And I'll pull up the shout out to playoffpredictors.com. They make these you make an app you can do any college football team you want that's not independent for whatever reason, and do schedule predictions for them. So I can pull up Nebraska here and look at what we got. I could do the whole Big Ten if I want to, or I can just do Nebraska. And if you have OCD like me, it's kind of fun to kill time with sometimes. So you got 5 games left. Let's be real. One of your wins is against an FCS team. You need 3 wins to make a bowl game. You need 3 wins. So where do those come from? Well, you got Illinois. No bye weeks after this. So next Saturday, you got Illinois at home, Minnesota at home, Michigan on the road, Wisconsin at home, Iowa on the road. That's tough. There's 3 wins there. It's tough because there's 3 wins there, but there's nowhere on that schedule I can point to and go, yeah, that's where it's coming from. That's where it's coming from. We needed to beat Purdue. If we beat Purdue, I would have been pretty confident that we would have been bowling this season. But we needed to beat Purdue, but that's out of the way now. So there's 3 wins there. The room for error is just very small. The window gets smaller with every week. Illinois, I mean, they kind of remind me of Purdue. I think they're a little overrated. Both teams are going to be coming off a bye week, so there's not really any excuses on either side from that aspect in terms of fatigue or being tired. So that's out the window. We got the home field advantage on them. They lost to Indiana earlier in the season, who we beat by 2 scores. Now, Illinois and Nebraska are 2 completely different teams than they were at the beginning of the season, obviously. Both for the better. And Brett Bielema is a hell of a coach. Don't count him out. But I think beating if we don't beat Illinois, I don't think we're going bowling. If we beat Illinois, we need to find 2 more wins. It's not coming from Michigan. So you got to beat. You can only lose to one of Minnesota, Wisconsin, or Iowa. Minnesota looks a lot. I thought they were the odds-on favorite to win the Big Ten West earlier in the season. They look a lot more human right now. I think Minnesota's a winnable game. You can easily go into that Michigan game with a 5-4 record and then get stomped. But you can easily go into that Michigan game 5-4. Then it's Wisconsin or Iowa, both of whom look as beatable as they have since Frost got hired. You can win either one of those games. You can win either one of those games. I mean, I obviously prefer we beat Iowa. I prefer we win both, but I don't think we're going to. I prefer we beat Iowa just because we'd like to win the rivalry game. That's on the road. We've struggled there as of recently. Don't need to tell you guys that twice though. But bowling's not out of the question. It looks like a tougher schedule, and like I said, the window gets smaller every week. But it's not out of the question. This team can. It's not as bad as it sounds like. This team could string together 3 wins to make a bowl out of the next. This team could string together a 3-2 run to make a bowl game. Is what I'm saying. Especially if that's what they're told will keep their coach's job. If we go bowling, I think it's very hard to hire someone not named Mickey Joseph unless you have an Urban Meyer waiting in the wings. So I think it's a good possibility. I don't think it's if smart money, again, gun to my head, I'd probably say we finish 5-7. I think we'd lose to Illinois. Beat Minnesota, lose to Michigan, and then beat one of Wisconsin or Iowa. That would be, if you made me pick right now, that's my prediction going forward. Would be 5-7. And I don't think that would be the worst outcome given everything. Now, when you look back at this season, there's a lot of games that we should have won. I mean, this team very easily could have finished this season 10-2, 9-3. Oklahoma ain't all that impressive. You had them at home. It'd be 11-1 if they were coached correctly, which they weren't for a long time. I mean, it's just the rot of the past administration is still there, and it can still be smelled and it can still be felt. And it's unfortunate. But this Malachi Coleman commitment coming up this week, and we'll kind of circle back and end where we started. Malachi Coleman, if he commits this Saturday, that's a solid sign. I don't care if he's in state. To get a 4-star recruit, and the kid reminds me of Terrell Owens if you watch him play. To get a 4-star recruit like that in the middle of a coaching search is a big deal. An in-state commitment for Nebraska means a lot more than it did 10, 15 years ago. You got an entire generation of kids. They're 18 years old. They never seen this team be good. Their formative years were the Mike Riley era. You know? When they were developing the most memories of this school, of this football program. So that's basically like going to another state, to Missouri or Iowa, and grabbing somebody out of there, because these kids have seen Iowa be a lot more nationally relevant than Nebraska, and that ain't too far. We've already lost a couple kids from that to Iowa. I mean, look at Noah Fant. It makes me sick. We probably would have screwed that up anyway, so it doesn't matter. So if we're able to get a 4-star recruit, don't care where he's from, in the middle of a coaching search with an interim head coach, it's a positive sign. That might be the first of many dominoes to fall. And it's a sign that Mickey's going to stay. Anyway, this has been the Through These Gates podcast. Make sure you guys like and subscribe. Make sure you share around, turn the notifications on. Subscribe to my personal YouTube, Caleb Salvatore. Follow me at Caleb Isn't Funny on Twitter and Instagram. You can also follow me, Caleb Salvatore Comedy, on TikTok before they take it down. Go to outlawstreamers.com. Sign up for a membership and watch full episodes of my full-time show, That's Based. We love doing that. It's lots of fun. We get spicy over there. October 29th, the Saturday, I'll have the link in the description. Night of the Laughing Dead. It's going to be a great comedy show. costume contest, all kind. It'll just be fun. We'll have drinks, like Halloween themed drinks and all that. It's $10 either online or cash at the door, whatever you want to do. Make sure you come out to that. It'll be a great time if you're looking for something to do. Halloween weekend. Come out, have a beer with me. We'll talk football. We'll either celebrate Nebraska beating Illinois or drown our sorrows. Either way, Beach House has great cheap drinks like that. So make sure you come out. I think that's really all I got. This has been the Through These Gates podcast. Thank you so fucking much. Peace out.